going on, ladies and gents? Checking 1 2 1 2 1 2. Perfect. Microphone's working. What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 16 of the Feel for Football podcast. I'm your host, Sanchez Bailey, and I'm not feeling the best. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like pre-cold vibes, which is why I got my scarf on, which is why you're gonna see me sweat a bit. So if you do, gotta sweat it out. Gotta let this pre-cold get out of the system. You know. Yeah, I almost was gonna pull the plug and be like, let me just call in sick. But do you know what? I'm beginning to see the podcast picking up a bit, and I really want to keep the momentum going. You know, hope everyone's well. Now, this is the topic that I've been inspired by. You know, throughout the week I maintain contact with clients, some people that I've worked with before, or even just athletes in general. You know, and it's been a busy week in terms of me contacting and just staying in touch with, you know, different levels of athletes. And I got inspired for this topic just speaking to a number of them. And you know, I was speaking to one in particularly. I'll keep the person anonymous, and they were just saying how busy they were. You know, playing every 3 days, the schedule's hectic, and there's a lot going on for them. You know, and that just made me think, goodness gracious me, we're at this, I don't know what the project's called this time round, but you know, we had Project Restart, and Project Restart had so many fixtures, games on a weekend, games in a midweek, and then returning back on the weekend, back to back every single week. And that's taxing. That's taxing a lot on, you know, the mentality of an individual. There's not much rest. Taxing on the physicality. You saw how many injuries there were during the whole Project Restart, and you're seeing injuries happen now. And so I feel like this is a topic that I feel like I need to speak about. Now I'm going to give you a generic perspective. However, as the weeks go by, I really want to break this down into much detail throughout a season and maybe do a series on elements. And it made me think about sleep. It made me think about conditioning, you know, and it made me think about people within your off the field, like your surroundings, your social world. And I think those three are very important, especially if you're having those fixtures back to back. But especially if you're returning back to football and you're really trying to stay on top of your game, recovery is going to be ever so important. And I want to break down recovery into these three dimensions, where we're talking about sleep, we're talking about conditioning, and we're talking about your social surroundings. Let's focus on sleep, because this is a topic that I want to break down in a series, or maybe in a full episode with an athlete that I'll speak to as well. But just kind of going over sleep now. Sleep is so important for a footballer, you know, and it's going to be very interrupted. It's very hard for you to develop the most amount of consistency with sleep because of fixtures, late night traveling, and, you know, pre-match, not anxiety, but pre-match arousal and post-match arousal, you know. So consistency in sleep is very difficult to achieve in football. However, sleep is very important. By not having enough sleep, there is a number of negative effects that it can have on performance. You know, one of them being poor decision making, inappropriate attention being paid towards a task. We're talking about decreased ability to process information, lack of or decreased endurance, and each one of those can have a negative effect on performance, and they can actually appear in every single one of your performances. So let's just focus on poor attention. You know, if you're tired, you're less sharp in your mind. You know, the processing information a lot less quicker and a lot less crisper, as if you had a little bit more sleep. Let's talk about the lack of sleep in terms of making decisions. You know, you're less sharp in your mind. You know, decisions will be maybe slightly delayed, a split second. We're talking about even the ability to process information, either when you're calculating and reading the game. We're talking about the elements of you processing information from the coach, maybe from pre-match or even during the game as you're hearing commands. When you do have a lack of sleep, you are at risk of being hyper or hypo-aroused. You know, where you might be overzealous for the game, or you might be under zealous essentially, or under aroused, where your energy levels might not be quite there in terms of what's required for a good level of performance from yourself. And another factor of you not sleeping well is that it can have effect on poorer eating, you know. So So there's a number of effects that a lack of sleep can have, and this is something that a lot of players suffer from. Now, let me show some understanding. It's very difficult for you to go to sleep at a decent time and get quality amount of sleep when you have a big game. Also, the night of the match, it's hard for you to get good quality sleep as well. I'm bearing in mind that those are going to be late nights for you, and that's acceptable. And I'm going to touch on it a little bit and give some recommendations and just show some understanding with that. But I do want to just acknowledge that I'm not saying that everyone needs to go to sleep at 10 o'clock. That's not where I'm coming from. I'm very realistic in my approach. And I just wanted to bring a bit of awareness to what the effects can be when you do not have quality sleep. And hopefully maybe you can start seeing some similarities to maybe times when you didn't. And I'm hoping that there's some people that are listening today that are a little bit more aware of how sleep can affect them. And hopefully from this episode you can become a little bit more aware. And my challenge for everyone today is I'm going to provide a number of recommendations a little bit later, or literally in a moment. And I'm hoping that if you do feel like you're not getting quality of sleep, try this out for a little bit, and hopefully these things will add value to you in your performances. Just as a side note, before I progress in sleep a little bit more, I try not to give you too much terminologies because I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing actually in reflection sometimes, but I try and give you the tools in terminology that I feel like you can just apply and you don't have to really think too deep about some of the terminologies. I try and synthesize it and make it a little bit more in relatable terms, especially because I don't know, there's so many age groups that listen to this. And so with that being said, there's different stages of sleep, right? And I'm not going to go into terms of the terminologies of them, but there's a stage of sleep that's not very secure, essentially, where it's easy for you to go in and out of it. It's easy for you to wake up. But then there's a deeper stage of sleep, which is best for us to achieve. When you're able to get yourself to the deeper stages of sleep, this is where there's better effects of performance from good quality sleep. We're talking improved concentration. We're talking almost the reverse effect from the negative. So we're talking improved endurance, improved concentration on task. So those are benefits of improved and good quality sleep. And I just want to leave some generic tips, essentially, and strategies that you can slowly start applying. And this is going by my experience with some of the players that I've worked with who kind of struggle with sleep. And these are some of the things that have helped them. But there's a plethora, meaning there's a great range of aspects that you can apply for you to improve in your sleep. And that's something I feel like I need to go in proper depth with a sole topic of sleep. So the first recommendation is for you not to go to sleep until you're feeling sleepy. Now, we're all conscious of sleep and the importance of sleep and the need for good quality sleep. So it does get to a point where you want to sleep and you kind of try and get yourself to, you almost force yourself to sleep. The problem with this is that it's going to be delayed for you to enter into the deeper forms of sleep. And because of that, or consequently, shall I say, your mind starts to wander. Your mind starts maybe focusing on the game, maybe negative aspects, and maybe you start worrying that you're not sleeping, and that delays you even further. And that then gives you the negative, it then bursts negative thoughts that can counteract some of the good preparations that you made for the match, or even training in some ways. So that's one of the things I would say that you should not do is force yourself to sleep. Avoid going to sleep until you feel sleepy. Another recommendation is avoid taking daytime naps. By doing that, you delay the onset of sleep later on in the day, and I'm talking about nighttime sleep. So you delay that occurring. So typically if you have a nap in the daytime, you tend to go to sleep later in the day, but you delay the onset of sleep, and that obviously ruins the opportunity for you to have good quality sleep during the night. However, though, there are occasions, especially as footballers, your schedule's all over the place. If you do have a nap in the day, try and limit it to an hour, which allows you to be a little bit sharper, improves your concentration for maybe some of the tasks you might have during the day, and also doesn't interrupt the ability for you to sleep later on in the evening. My next recommendation is for you to try and have a regular sleeping time. Now, the moment I've said that, I know that cannot exist, but try and keep it within plus or minus an hour. So, let's just say you usually go to bed at maybe midnight or 11 p.m. Try and keep it plus or minus an hour around then, because you slowly get your body into a circadian rhythm. That's the terminology, but almost a rhythm of you sleeping and being awake in the daytime, So I know match days and sometimes international traveling might be a bit of an exception, and, fortunately have delivered that, but try and keep your sleeping pattern with plus or minus within an hour of each other. And lastly, I feel like this is probably a great way to kind of like just leave and conclude with sleep for now until we revisit it at a later date. I'm sweating, aren't I? Getting rid of this cold. Is for you to not force yourself to sleep. You don't want to put the pressure on you sleeping, and so by taking that pressure away leads to sleep. So there's no forcing, there's no pressure on yourself. You just allow your body to get yourself into an ease of sleep, and that has improved effects on your temperament, so less biting at the referee in a negative way or getting yourself in a bit of a squabble that could potentially get yourself sent off, is just having no pressure on yourself. So that's sleep. So the next thing I want to talk about is you conditioning yourselves. Now, I've been at football clubs, from academy, first team, in different leagues, and what I have seen, not from every player, and what I have seen though, is the lack of investment and dedication to the recovery aspect. I feel like from the athletes that I do work with, boxers do this a tremendous amount, maybe because it's also by force, but they have to recover, especially because of the immense of physical abuse that the body's gone through, essentially. And so recovery is so important. I've seen players, just lie on a foam roller and take it a little bit easy, but I do believe that athletes, especially if you're playing at this every 3-4 day rate, for you to recover and really invest and dedicate and improve your commitment to recovery in terms of football games. When you think about those that have the greatest amount of longevity in sport, or even lowered and limited injury rates, we're talking LeBron James, we're talking even Serena Williams bouncing back from having a baby, or Roger Federer, Ryan Giggs at the time, Cristiano Ronaldo. They all invest in their physicality, and a heavy amount is due to their recovery and conditioning their bodies and ensuring that their bodies have recovered to a point so they can repeat that same intensity again and again and again. So my question to you is, do you invest enough in your conditioning? If the physicality is important in terms of you developing the fitness and the level of physicality to endure the demands of your sport, the mentality, you're listening to me, so that's an investment, and some people have got themselves some books, the mindset planner, that's great, the psychological side, but conditioning is its own separate entity, and this is going to be so important for you to be able to last throughout the season and potentially avoid injuries. It's not always going to happen, sometimes there's a freak of nature, but there is definitely an association with conditioning yourself and making sure that you're invested in that and your ability to recover and be able to perform for a number of games, and we have that out there from the athletes I've just mentioned. So you will know a little bit better than I do. You're surrounded by the people that can give you more advice on that. Ryan Giggs did yoga, he played to 41. LeBron has these investments. Ronaldo, you've seen what he's like, he's an animal, but also recovers well as well. Maybe, when I break this down into a further, actually it makes no sense. I was thinking of contacting a boxer and speaking to them, but maybe I'll do something like that on social media. But anyway, now considering the whole concept of a whole season, 9 months, 3/4 of a year, there's going to be times where it gets a little bit lonely, where you may feel like there's limited people to speak to, you're not getting a number of, or probably getting limited support. There are tough times that do come, and it's important to make sure that you have those people within your circle and within your camp, some people that you like to spend off the field moments with, whether it's a companion, whether it's friends, or whether it's a teammate, or even some other professionals that are supporting you throughout the season. It's important to make sure that you have those people established, and making sure that there's regular contact, whether it's coming from yourself or maintaining contact with those people that that you get that support from. because there are times in the season where people are going to assume that you're okay, but it's always good for you to have someone and an outlet to always communicate with, and that's really important. So whether that's within the professional realm, whether it's like a trainer, psychologist, personal, whether it's friends, family, companionship, or it's important to make sure that off the field you're making contact and communication with those people that are able to provide that support. And maybe I'll go as far as recommending that every week that there's someone that you're just engaging with, and and getting that support. And that's important for you. It's important for you consciously, subconsciously, to make sure that you have someone that is supporting you along the way. But anyway, all of those subjects we'll definitely explore in greater detail, but I wanted to provide some food for thought today, especially just realizing the intensity of everyone's schedules, playing Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe even Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, every week right now. So there's a lot of things that need to be balanced and a lot of things that need to be maintained, and hopefully this episode today gives you a lot more of an idea so you can become more well-rounded in terms of you being someone that's looking after their well-being, physically, mentally,